We really have two different kinds of theories which we apply to the world. The physics of the large-scale activity, that's classical physics as it's called, and the physics of small-scale activity. Consciousness calls upon whatever's going on in this bridge between the small-scale quantum level and the large-scale classical level.
Ways in which things which appear to be separate are in fact not separate, and the connections that occur between the objects transcend both space and time.
How can this be? How is it that we can, by mental means alone, perceive things that are distant from us, either in miles or kilometers, but also in time?
And it goes counter to common sense. And common sense says that an object, this object is right here, and it's here in time and here in space. Non-locality says that, well, that's true, but it is also connected to virtually the rest of the universe in ways that were not obviously visible to us.
Somehow we are mentally able to tune into, like a radio, this idea of being any place or any time, because those are not restrictions in the quantum world. Everything is interconnected across all time and space in the quantum world, and it would appear that the information that we are able to discover with remote viewing follows many of those same laws. So that is the most popular explanation for how this works. Now, the follow-on question is, well, that's very interesting, but I mean, how does it work? Well, it turns out that some people at the University of Arizona have studied a cellular formation within our neurons called microtubules. And these microtubules form geometric shapes and are so small, they are 9 nanometers in size, which means that they are small enough to behave quantum mechanically, meaning that they are polarized, positive or negative, but because they're quantum mechanical, they are polarized as 0 in the quantum state and then fall out of the quantum state into positive and return to the quantum state, fall out as negative, fall out as positive, constantly passing from everywhere and every when to in this moment. And as they collapse to this moment, that is our reality we perceive. And then it's gone again, and we are everywhere and every when, and then we collapse here again, and we perceive this reality. But much like a movie that has single frames in the movie passing by, we don't notice the times when we are local and when we are non-local. But by altering our consciousness to entering into these meditative or perceptual states, we can then become aware of these in-between times when we are everywhere and every when.
Is a physics idea. It's not metaphysics. Non-locality did not come out of ESP research, but was developed by Erwin Schrödinger in the 20s and Einstein in the 30s, where they noticed that there is a connection between elementary particles that are separated when they're born, even though the particles travel away from one another at the speed of light.
We can test it in the laboratory, and we know that that's true, that there's a non-local aspect to every object. Since that's true, then what does non-locality mean when it comes to living tissue? This is a highly complicated system here that I call myself and the brain and so on. Non-locality says that there are aspects of me which are not just here. Not only not here now, but the thing here is sort of spread out in space and time. In a way of thinking then, you can imagine that my brain is spread out throughout the entire universe and all space and time. That's a big brain.
The whole scientific community now agrees that not only theoretically but experimentally, we live in a non-local world where things physically separated from one another can nonetheless be in instantaneous communication.
It's very, very difficult to think about it because it's not just my brain that's spread out throughout the universe, it's everything. All other brains, all other particles, everything
so
is
if it's spread
fully connected.
If it's spread across space and time, that also means that it's spread through every notion of what we would call the past, every notion of what we would call the future.
That's right.
It's this life in a non-local world that permits psychic functioning to take place. It's not that I close my eyes and send a message to a person 1,000 miles away, but rather, in some sense, there's no separation between my consciousness and his consciousness.
Associative remote viewing has people look at photographs that they're going to see in the future, that they're going to be shown, but those photographs are then associated with something else of interest. In our case, we're using the stock market. So we have two photographs, one which is associated with the stock market going up, one which is associated with the stock market not going up. And we are getting some very nice successes now. When you really begin to think about what does it mean to be able to gather information from distant places in space and time, that changes our society. The old religious spiritual concepts of we are one, that's really what this kind of work with consciousness is showing. That we can gather information from any place, any time. Doesn't that make us one? We're all connected.
So if quantum particles can be joined mysteriously across space and time, could aspects of our consciousness too? Could the world of our thoughts exist in the same way as the world of these subatomic particles?
You know, many times we may get a funny feeling about things, or premonitions even. And it could be that this is quantum information being sent or transferred or entangled from someplace else distantly, or even from the future.